Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors and presented by Rockpoint Bank and EPB. Rockpoint Bank, from Chattanooga for Chattanooga. And EPB, get EPB's fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guest this week is Hugh Morrow. Hugh is the president and CEO of Ruby Falls. Hugh grew up on Lookout Mountain and made his first visit underground as a first grader on a field trip. He now leads the organization. Hugh, before we talk about how the falls were discovered and the secrets that lie below the ground, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
Wow, it's going to a unique venue every day. And the neatest part about Ruby Falls is it never can be recreated and it can't be moved.
It can't be moved. No, it can't.
And so I think when I need a pick-me-up, I will walk out to the falls and I'll watch families view it for the first time or maybe the second or third time. And when their children grab their leg and go, wow, that's what motivates you in the morning.
Yeah, that gets you going.
Yeah.
Do you have any help with a little caffeine or a little morning start?
I do. When it comes to that, I have a cup of coffee at home.
Yeah.
And when I get to the office, I have one more, and then I cut it off after that.
What's your poison? Black? Doctored up?
One Splenda and a little bit of cream.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Gets the day going for you.
Yes, it does.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. I appreciate you taking time to do this. So you're native Chattanooga and grew up on Lookout. And, I want to talk about growing up on Lookout, but I also want to talk about how much this town's changed as you grew up. Talk a little bit about your early years.
I'm a product of the 60s, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And so the Chattanooga I knew and drove down Broad Street was the Wheeling Foundry, Chattanooga.
Yeah.
And I can remember we thought as children, it was really cool if the flames were coming out of the smokestack at the top and didn't realize really what that was all about. And to see what's going on that property right now is just really cool for somebody who was a product of that. And the jobs that created and the families that fed over the years was really, really neat. But it was time to move on from that in the city. So,
what's interesting about that is if you look at like stock certificates from the 40s and 50s, it's showing these smokestacks in these buildings, and that's what progress was.
It was, it was the dynamo of Dixie that we had in between combustion engineering and the different foundries that we had. That's what it was all about back then. I can remember I hung out, riding my bike around the incline and stuff, but standing on the overlook of the incline or Point Park, and you couldn't see the Tennessee River.
Wow. And
it had an orange haze over it, and now every day you can see that beautiful view. So it's been an interesting thing to watch that change.
So you grew up on Lookout, and that was, as you mentioned, in the 60s, 70s when the smog just dominated. What would you do for fun growing up?
Wow. I think enjoying the outdoors is so much different now in that, you'd get on your bike and leave the house at 9 a.m. and come back at 5.
Would you ever ride down the mountain?
I've done it. Yeah, I did it multiple times, and on occasion you would take your bike and put it on the incline and ride back up.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
And you'd ride back up on the incline. I've never ridden up the mountain.
Yeah.
And gosh, my mother wouldn't have come down to pick me up. No way. She came off Lookout Mountain maybe once a week, which was really unique because we had a store there, the post office, dry cleaners, everything that was up there that everybody drives down the mountain for now. But it was we had a group of friends and who still know today, and we would get on our bikes and ride all over the mountain.
You have siblings?
I have 2 older sisters.
2 older sisters?
Yes.
So you and your friends ride around just doing what kids
We just did that, or we played golf or we played baseball or at the Commons there, and I ended up working there later in my life. But it was getting on the trails below Point Park and walking around, and there were no cell phones and no trackers or anything, and you just, if your mother said to be home by 5, you were there at 4:45. You did not show up late.
Did you realize what you had at that time?
No. What a cool way to go about it, and it was so unstructured. You didn't have travel baseball and travel softball and travel basketball and always going somewhere. You just kind of hung out with your friends.
Yeah, I think we kind of miss that.
I do. Yeah.
What was your first part-time job? You mentioned working in the Commons area.
Yeah, it was probably my first commerce paying job was I would go to the incline in the afternoons, and they had a pinball machine, and there was a general manager there who would give me a list, and I would go down to the warehouse underneath the incline building and fill it full of shot glasses and salt and pepper shakers and ashtrays to bring up to the gift shop. And he would give me 50 cents for doing that for him. And
just 50 cents for all you did, or 50 cents an hour? Or?
Yeah. It would take about 20 minutes, maybe. Probably totally against the law in today's world.
Yeah.
And
how old were you?
Probably 11, 12.
Yeah.
That's 5th or 6th grade. And so I'd ride my banana seat Schwinn up there, and he'd give me 2 quarters, and I could get a Reese's peanut butter cup, a Coke, and 1 game of pinball. And I would do that, and then I'd go back home. Yeah. And that was my afternoon kind of break after school, and that was kind of fun. But my next job was cutting lawns, as a lot of us did, and I pushed a lawnmower all over Lookout Mountain and cut a lot of grass. Yeah. And probably I was extremely busy doing that, so I probably wasn't charging enough. And
that was your first economic lesson.
Yes, but I didn't. Once again, your parents weren't taking you to those. You would push it up and down the street. So that was a lot of fun. But I ended up probably my favorite job, maybe of my lifetime, is I worked 2 summers at the Commons on Lookout Mountain and taught kids how to play baseball and umpired baseball games and saw T-ball, minor league and major league, as we called it back then, mostly rec baseball. And a lot of those kids are in their mid-50s now, and I still know them, and we laugh about those days that they played on the playground and played baseball, and I got to know them, got to know their parents, their siblings. But I worked for a guy named Buck Stamps. And anybody from Lookout Mountain in my generation remembers Buck Stamps. He ran all the recreation and the PE at the Lookout Mountain School, and he was just a legend. And he just taught me a lot about leadership and working with people and getting along with people. Everybody loved Buck Stamps.
What made him unique?
He was tough. He pushed you. He asked a lot out of you. He was like the old coaches we had growing up. Yeah. And but he was fair. He was fair and got along with people. And he used to we got paid $40 a week for a 8-hour a day, 5-day job.
Were you in high school?
No, yes. Yeah, I was 15 and then 16, both those summers. And I remember him looking at me. He says, "Well, we don't take taxes out of your check." And I was like, "Well, okay, 20% of $40. I don't know, let's talk about this." And but he taught you, how to behave, how to be respectful to your parents, be respectful to your schoolmate, whatever it may be, and to compete fairly. That was his big deal. And whether you were playing dodgeball or wall ball or whatever you were doing, tetherball, he just had that deep voice that he'd call you out on. But what a neat guy.
Yeah, you obviously left an impression on you.
Yeah.
So your job was kind of, like a better term, the playground superintendent? You were getting kids started in different games or different sports?
Yes. And some of them didn't know how to hold a baseball bat when they got there.
Yeah.
And you would work with them for a week, and they would be hitting the ball really well left-handed, and their mother would show up and say, "But he's right-handed."
But all left-handed hitting major leaguers are millionaires.
That's right. Or as my father said, I taught you how to hit left-handed because I knew you'd be slow and you needed the extra step.
So was sports a big part of growing up for you?
It was. At the high school level, my father was an athlete. He went to the University of Alabama in the 40s and had 9 varsity letters. He
Oh,
had
wow.
4 in baseball, 4 in football, and 1 in basketball. He played in 2 Sugar Bowls and a Rose Bowl. And so he kind of instilled in us athletics. And
I bet.
he wasn't real pushy about it, but we had everything we needed if we wanted to play athletics. And whether it was playing golf or baseball or football or whatever it may be, that was back in the day when you played 3 or 4 sports. Right. And he was just a great encourager of that. I always tell people athletics skips a generation. I was not near the athlete he was, but we were around it growing up.
So you mentioned football, baseball, and basketball that he played. Was he pre-Bear Bryant, or did he play for Bear?
He actually followed Bear when Bear played there, and he played against Bear Bryant's Kentucky team.
Yeah.
When Bear was at Kentucky. And he said the year before Bear got there, I remember him telling me this story. They won like 55-0 or whatever it was. It was a complete blowout. And they went out for the opening kickoff against Kentucky when Bear came there. And he said a buddy of his came off the field after the kickoff, and his nose was around about his ear and bleeding and everything else. He said it was a different Kentucky team when Bear Bryant got there.
I bet it was.
And they didn't have face masks. So,
and hadn't he just come from like Texas A&M and the Junction Boys and that whole story there?
That whole get together. I think he went to A&M after Kentucky.
Was it?
Maryland.
Yeah,
I got to think back on that.
Yeah.
David Pascal will get on me for not knowing that.
Yeah, he'll definitely tell you. So you're growing up really this idyllic life on Lookout Mountain, going to school at Macaulay. When it comes time for college, do you head to Alabama?
That's an interesting story in that, again, my father was a great encourager. I had actually looked at going to Auburn because I wanted to be a civil engineer, and they had an incredible program, and my father basically told me I couldn't afford Auburn and that it would be a lot cheaper for me to go to Alabama. And so I ended up being a business major at Alabama, and it was great. I mean, my mother and father came down there a lot, and it was kind of home for them. And it was a great decision.
Did your mom also go to Alabama?
No, she's Ole Miss.
Oh wow.
Ole Miss.
Man, you had it all covered.
Her whole family was Ole Miss.
Yeah. You know what Auburn is an acronym for, don't you? Alabama usually beats us around November.
There have been times when we haven't, but lately it's been pretty good.
You know what UT is an acronym for? Us too.
Again, that swings.
Yes, it swings both ways. So talk about your college life. You know, not just the school itself, but some of the things you did, whether it was extracurriculars or work.
School's really interesting in that I started off as a business major, and then I decided to tack on and study chemistry along with that. And I probably was unique of 20,000 people at the university who had a dual program of marketing and chemistry.
Marketing and chemistry. I don't know if I've ever heard that connection.
Heard of it. And one of my mentors had suggested that I needed something a little more technical. And so my many hours of electives was sitting in a chemistry lab.
Did you like chemistry?
Yeah, I actually did.
Yeah.
I don't know if it liked me.
Yeah.
Because all of my elective hours were C's, and normally your electives are something a little more easier than that.
But you pushed yourself.
I did, and I think it gave me a different perspective on the way I go about things and more of an analytical look. But it made the academic side of it a little harder than probably. But I got out in 8 semesters or 4 years. Did not take a victory lap. I was very involved in my fraternity, which was Sigma Chi, and there are still many, many people that I met during that process that I'm still friends with. A lot of them I talk to weekly still, and very close, and we keep up with each other. So that was very funny story about that one was my father was a Sigma Chi there as well, and I called him and told him I was going to pledge another fraternity. And he said, well, that's great. He says, when I come to the University of Alabama, I'll be with my brothers at the Sigma Chi house. You'll need to come visit us.
Oh, wow.
So I hung up the little payphone and that I call collect on, and I walked in the street and pledged Sigma Chi.
I thought he was going to tell you couldn't afford Sigma Chi.
No, he was like I said, he was an encourager, but it was, he had a very subtle way about him.
Yeah. Did you work any part-time jobs when you were in school?
I did in the summers, but not while I was in school.
Yeah. What kind of stuff do you do in the summer?
Oh, wow. Probably the toughest job I had is I worked in a carpet mill one summer, unair conditioned, hand rolling and inspecting carpet. And I would go home in the evenings with bloody hands and skin rubbed off my hands. And I learned in that case, you do not ask your father to get you a summer job.
Well, he always gets you the one that encourages you to get your degree.
Yeah, this is true. I did go one summer to school and then went to UTC and took a couple of courses one summer. So did that as well.
So when it comes time to get out, you got a marketing and a chemistry degree. What do you do with that?
I thought, first of all, I was going to get my MBA, and I never did, and that's a whole nother story. But I thought that I was going to end up in the pharmaceutical side of the business,
that makes
pharmaceutical
sense.
sales and marketing, and it gave me a leg up on people in that area. I came out right in the beginning of the Reagan years, and that was a pretty tough time to start a career. So I decided to go back and get my MBA. I was accepted at UT. I was going to UT, and my father had a business and a partner, 2 partners, and his partner called me and said, we'd like you to come to work for us and not go to school. And you'll report to me, not your dad. And so I accepted the job and thinking I'd work a couple of years, maybe go back and get my MBA then. And it just kicked my career off. And I worked for them for a few years and then moved to another position.
What was the business?
It was a marketing company that marketed and brokered textiles, fiber, yarns, supply to the carpet industry. That was also verticalizing at that time, and gosh, again, giving my age away, Shaw Industries was just a dye house at that time. It was not really in the carpet business, so he can tell you how that's changed. Mohawk was much smaller; they were a rug organization, so it's just all that verticalized, and it kind of took that business away, and he ended up working there, or they had that business for another 10 years, and I left after 5 years.
You mentioned you were working on your MBA when they called you and said, hey, come work for us. And do you regret not getting, and maybe regret's not the right word, do you regret not getting your MBA, or do you now at the end of your career say, probably wouldn't have made a big difference to where I ended up?
I don't think it would have made a big difference. And I talk to a lot of people that are starting their careers, and you go back when I get to this point in my career and you look at different forks in the road, and you say, what if I'd gone left instead of right, or right versus left? I think the funniest one was I was offered a job with Walmart in 1982.
Ooh.
It was going to pay $15,200 to be an assistant manager at a Walmart, probably in a town like Simpsonville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they weren't very widespread in 82.
No, they were going into old Gibsons and Roses that had shut down. They weren't even building them at that time. And I was like, that's kind of a big chance to go to work for a company, Walmart. Are they going to make it? Or are they going to? And I decided not to. And I ended up meeting their he's their COO, a guy named Don Sutterquist, has since passed away.
Him, yeah.
And I had a great conversation with him, and I said, we were in Arkansas on the lake, and I pointed at all those mansions, and I said, so if I'd taken that job in 1982, would I have one of those mansions? He goes, yeah, you would.
You absolutely
would. He goes, so what did we offer you? I said, $15,200. He goes, that's the number. He said, yeah. And he said, most of those people took that offer. And so, again, so many great things have happened.
Yeah.
I don't go back and regret it, but always return the phone call.
Yeah.
Always talk to people and look at opportunity.
Leave those doors open. Don't just say no.
Yeah.
Sure. You mentioned Sam Walton, and it's a quote attributed to Sam Walton, and it was probably by someone before him, but we used to use it in advertising all the time. Sam Walton would say, a funny thing happens when you don't invite people into your store. They don't come, which was our basis for you better advertise.
Yes.
So you take a job with the marketing company.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about that and where that leads you.
Well, you could kind of see the writing on the wall and the way people were going about supplying their businesses in Dalton, and the clients we had that we marketed their products were being bought up, and so it didn't look like it was a long-term kind of program. And I got an offer from one of our customers. It was a guy named Stan Goodrow, who's still living today. Legend in Dalton, Georgia, to come work more in a manufacturing position and overseeing their manufacturing. They made replacement carpets for automobiles and mats. And he and offered me a job, and I took it. And then about 2 years into that, he had another broadloom carpet and a commercial carpet item, and he asked me to go into marketing and sales there. And that's how I got back into marketing and sales. And I was handling national accounts for healthcare. So like HCA and those types of people that buy carpets all over the world. So I did that for a while. He sold the company, and I left when he sold the company and ended up with Collins and Aikman, or Tandis, which is now Tarkett. So a lot of change in those. So that's how I got into the floor covering business.
With that original job in the floor covering, was it Mr. Goodrow?
Yes.
Were you selling, or were you managing? Were you the sales manager? Just kind of
I started off as a floor manager. I was going to be over their whole operations, manufacturing operation, and they had a fellow that was retiring, and he hired me to replace him. And it really happened right after the guy retired, and I was trying to help them get their broadloom carpet or commercial carpet side going, and he was like, I think you fit better here. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up traveling the country, calling on their major accounts, and that's kind of how I got into that. And he ended up hiring the guy that actually owns that company now to come in and oversee that.
Were you living here in Chattanooga?
Yeah, I was commuting.
To where?
To Dalton.
That's
always commuted to Dalton.
That's not too bad.
It wasn't back then, and it's a little different now.
Yeah.
It was about 35 minutes, give or take.
So, but I would imagine you were doing a lot of travel too.
I was, and I was talking to Kristen Beam at the airport last week, and I was laughing about how I used to leave every Monday morning and come back on Friday afternoon, and all the people at Chattanooga Airport knew me and really didn't have to check my ID. They knew who I was.
Yeah. Probably had a parking space for you too.
They
right?
did. It was, it was really, really unique.
So in getting out of school and your first job, ancillary working for your dad, but then getting into the carpet, what were some of the lessons you picked up along the way that you felt you take today and apply to Ruby Falls?
I think that, and one I try to talk to people about is, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And early in my career, I had a lot of responsibility, but I had a mentor sit me down one time, and I think it's one of the smartest things anybody ever told me was, you have great instincts and you work hard, and I'm not going to say I'm smart, but you're doing really well. The only thing you're missing is experience. And when you think about it, he said, there's only one way to get that. Time.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, you probably need to make sure you surround yourself with the right people that have experience in these items to give you guidance. And sometimes you don't think you need it, but we all do. I still do. And I think that's important. And so that was early in my career, that you learn, and you wake up the next day and the deal didn't go like you wanted to, or I remember sitting in Motorola one time trying to figure out how to ship carpet into China for them, and the tariffs were terrible, and trying to figure out how to hold on to that business. And it gives you a perspective on doing business in China.
Yeah.
And I've not done a lot of business in China, still haven't, but I remember that.
Yeah. And you can always go back to those lessons and know you know enough about it to get started with it.
Sure.
How important was building relationships across different industries and networking?
I think that it is the relationship side of it is the number one thing, and especially later in my career, I was in charge of the sales force, and so you've got 14 regional managers or regional vice presidents and 100 salespeople, and you're trying to find out who's performing, who's not performing, and communicating and knowing what's going on. And you're in Denver, San Francisco, and LA in 1 week, and you're trying to spend a few minutes with everyone and get to know them. You have to make some pretty quick decisions. Yeah. And if you don't have people working for you that can give you the right information, it's very difficult. And that comes with relationships and trust.
So the people who were working for you as you were leading the sales, was there an office that you would go into, or were they working out of their homes and everyone was working kind of remotely before it was cool?
We had, it depended on, in the major cities, we had offices, and they would, if you were in that major city, you worked out of the office, but a majority of them were working out of their homes. Yeah. And the successful ones were working out of an office like you have here,
yeah,
where they would get up and go somewhere and not try to work out of their homes, and it made them much more productive. But managing a group that's all over the country that don't have direct supervision, it'll before computers.
Yeah. And how difficult was that? I mean, from your standpoint of trying to, and before computers and being able to log in and see the same screen and do all, how were you able to manage a dispirited group that's kind of spread all over the country and you don't have really common communication techniques with them?
Yeah. I mean, cell phones were just coming on with all that time too. You spent a lot of time on the telephone.
Yeah.
And since you had the whole country, you spent a lot of time on the telephone from 6 to 9 at night too. And calling around, seeing how their day was, asking for reports, looking at order reports, looking at sales to quota on a lot of green bar paper.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it goes way back.
How much has technology made that easier?
Oh, we rolled out the first laptop sales program. It was in the late 90s, early 2000s, I think it was. We all carried our little 6-pound Toshiba laptop around. And it's probably the reason my shoulders hurt today. and that made that helped.
Yeah.
And I've been away from it for 19 years, which is hard to believe. I left in late 06. I think that in today's world with our cell phones and apps and everything that we do, it would have been much easier to stay up. I mean, you could actually find friends and see if they're actually working, I guess. And sometimes you don't want to know that answer.
Right.
And so I think that it would be much easier today and much more communicative versus coming in and pulling the written messages, pink slips out of your slot when you walk in the office.
And I would imagine there was a premium for you on just instincts on knowing people, of getting to know people quicker.
Yeah, I mean, I would fly into Seattle.
Yeah.
And we would have a sales opening, and our regional vice president would have narrowed it down to 3 people. And I would spend a day in Seattle talking to 3 candidates for an hour, hour and a half, and have to give my input on which one I think would be the one we should hire. So I made some bad mistakes on that, but I think I hired some really good people over the years. And you got to make those calls, and you ask certain questions to find out if they're going to be an asset to your team. And company culture is the most important thing. If you don't think they're going to fit your culture or be detrimental to the culture, or they're too self-aware or too not going to be a great teammate or whatever it may be, to make that call in an hour, spending with somebody can be difficult.
Well, it's like getting married after a blind date.
Yes.
Yeah, you're trusting your instincts and what you've seen, but it's still a roll of the dice, isn't it?
It kind of is, and you don't know what is tied into their life outside of work. You can't ask. You don't know if they may want to move to another city right after you hire them, and you spend a year trying to train them and get them up to. But it all comes down, until they've got samples in the trunk and they're making sales calls, you have no clue if you made a good decision. Yeah. And
how long did you do that?
I did that with 2 different companies from 1992 through 2006.
So you're traveling the country. You're on the road a bunch. Talk about the opportunity to come back to Ruby Falls and what spurred that on.
Yeah, I mean, I traveled every major metropolitan area. I have a pretty good knowledge of. You can name any city except Cleveland, Ohio. It's the only one I've never been to. So the rest of them, I'm not sure you
missed much, but
I can get you from point A to point B, and pretty much so any town in major town in the States. I was fortunate enough over from 1999 to 2006. We bought and sold Collins and Aikman a couple times, and was involved in that equity group of it. And so we had a group called I think it was Oak Tree Capital. They're out of LA that bought us in 04, 05. And just to say it this way, I think it was time for me to go. Mm-hmm. And we all decided it was time for me to go, and parted ways somewhat amicably. And I was tired.
Yeah.
I was in my mid-40s, and again, calling the front desk of a hotel, asking where I was, and trying to get back in time for ball games. And my kids were in the latter part of high school and playing a lot of athletics. I was missing things, and it was just time for me to get off the road. And so I left in November of 06. And this goes back to always take the phone call.
Yeah.
And my good friend Jay Helton and my brother-in-law Mike Evatt had been talking, and Ruby Falls was going through a transition. Mr. Steiner was very ill at that point, and they had formed a board and were looking for a new president. And I called the chairman, Corinne Henderson, and said, I'd be interested in talking to you. I did not know anything about Ruby Falls. Drove by it every day of my life.
But you were there in the first grade.
In first grade. But you started talking to them, and you find out they've got a marketing group. They've got a billboard company. They had commercial real estate investments at that time. The cavern in Ruby Falls was the main thing, but it was not the only thing. And so I saw an opportunity to take all that and grow it and be a part of it. So I took the job, and unfortunately, Mr. Steiner passed away the second Monday I was on the job.
Oh, wow.
And he had lung cancer, and so I really never knew him.
Yeah.
I met him one time when he was in the hospital, but I'm not sure. He was pretty compromised, and so I never really had a chance to know him. But I found it's about 8 pages of notes he had made about the business and his thoughts on the business. And it was relatively recently. And I carry it wherever I go, and I pull it out and I read it occasionally, just so I don't forget where we came from.
What are some of the pearls of wisdom he had in there?
Well, it's mostly about the people.
Yeah.
Which I think was very important. And so the people that I inherited there, I kind of knew who the movers and shakers were. But it was mostly about the guest.
Yeah.
And how to give a great guest experience. And I traveled for how many years? And I knew what a great meal was. I knew what great customer service was. I knew what a great flight was. And so I just kind of reversed it and said, what would I want in a guest experience? And we have developed that at Ruby Falls. I am so proud of our team and everything they do on a daily basis. It's all about the guest every single day and how we can make it better for them.
When I first moved to town, we took our kids to Ruby Falls, and I guess that was early 2000. I would imagine from the day you walked into where Ruby Falls is today is a pretty different experience. And not necessarily the experience itself, but you've done a lot there in terms of amenities and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about just that transition from when you started to where you are today?
Yeah, technology has a lot to do with that. And when you have a cave, and depending on your beliefs, is it several thousand years old or is it millions of years old? I'm not going to get into that argument with anybody. So you can't like move a wall.
Yeah, you're stuck. You're stuck
or
with
lower
the design.
ceilings or raise the ceilings. But you can deal with the sound. You can deal with the lighting. I told the story the other day to someone that I went out to the falls, and we would illuminate the falls with, I think it was 6 incandescent bulbs. They were 1,000-watt bulbs. And I went out there one day, and 4 of them weren't burning because we would work on them every Monday morning, and they might burn out during the week, and there's nothing you could do about it. And so we introduced LED lights for the first time. You can imagine what we paid for those.
Oh, I bet.
In 2007, it was 2008. And so we never had to maintain lights again, and it used half the electricity. That's one of the things. And then we've changed all the lights out throughout the cave to where these old incandescent 90-watt flood bulbs and spot bulbs aren't going out all the time. Mm-hmm. And so that really raised the guest experience. And then we worked on sound. So we weren't using a big loudspeaker blowing it through the cave, and we used surround sound. And so it gave it more of a realistic feel. We upgraded our intro video got it looking like a story today would be, and everybody loves to see that. But the falls itself has not changed since I saw it as a first grader.
Well, and even before that, how was it discovered?
That's the neat part about that is it was a love story, really, in a way, but it was also by chance. Leo Lambert was trying to get to a cave in the lower part of the mountain that had been blocked off by the railroad. And he decided he would drill down to it because he used to play in that cave. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of this. Yeah. And so they're drilling down, and at 240, 260 feet, they hit a void in the rocks, and he starts crawling back into it and crawls on his belly for a while and then stood up for a while and ends up in the back of that cave, and there's a waterfall. If they drill that elevator shaft 20 feet to the left or 20 feet to the right, he misses that void in the rock. And Ruby Falls would still be in the middle of the mountain, and maybe nobody would even know it was there. And so it's by chance that he found it, and it's probably, as he said in a writing afterwards, it was meant for him to find it. Yeah. But he named it after Ruby, his wife. And
smart guy.
She had given him up for dead because he was underground for 17 hours, and they didn't think they would ever come back. And so I'm sure she expressed her opinion about that. As Jeannie Crawford says, they're bringing them out, and she didn't know if he was going to be alive or dead.
What year is this?
It's 1928. 28, 29.
And when you say he used to play in the cave and it was blocked off by the railroad and they were drilling an elevator shaft, so he's a young man at this point.
I think he was in his late 20s, early 30s.
Wow.
I think I'm right on that.
He must have really liked that cave to go to all that trouble.
Well, I mean, that cave in the bottom is one that's, again, people have gone in and out of it through the railroad, and I think they've got it blocked off now, but it was a pretty interesting cave.
Yeah. You've made a lot of changes, progress, however you want to put it, with the Ruby Falls experience. What can the typical person experience today? They come in and what happens?
Well, the main thing's the main thing, and that's the walking tour to the waterfall. There's I know a lot of cave owners and a lot of people that operate caves across the country, and as they say, we sure wish we had a waterfall at the end of ours. And so that's the uniqueness of it. And I think that it's generational, and so you want to make sure that's part of the tour. But we've added, when I first got there, we made people wait in line to buy a ticket because we couldn't have that many people in the building because it was so small. And with the addition of the annex that we built, we added quite a bit of square footage. I think it was 18,000 square feet for a new gift shop, bathrooms, cafe, entrance, all that kind of stuff that you need. And so we were able to go to time ticketing. And I think that was the game changer for us in 2018, I believe, is when we did that. And so if y'all wanted to go to Ruby Falls this afternoon, you can go online and say, I want to be on the 420 tour. If it's not sold out, then you can go to the next 20-minute tour 20 minutes later. And I think that's that was the change, and that people could plan their vacations and plan their day, and instead of showing up, standing, and then people would stand in line up to 2 hours just to buy a ticket.
Wow.
Now they go directly on the tour after that, but it was as we were before this, we were talking about Walmart. Nobody's going to stand in line to go in a Walmart. Well, in today's world, nobody's going to stand in line to do an attraction.
Well, and speaking of attractions, before Chattanooga was cool, it was Ruby Falls and Rock City were the two big tourist attractions here, and are the granddaddies. What is the responsibility of both Ruby Falls and Rock City when it comes to just the whole tourist experience in town?
Well, I mean, we're 97, soon to be 100. Rock City, I believe, is getting ready to turn 95. The incline's a little over 100, not the current incline, but the actual incline. So those are what we refer to as legacy attractions.
Yeah.
And I think that, and Lookout Mountain being the host of all that. And a lot of people say, well, I've been to Lookout Mountain, and I went into some cave. Sometimes they forget it was Ruby Falls, and they'll tell you all about it, but they'll remember Lookout Mountain as the draw, or the overarching brand, the Nabisco, so to speak, of the cookie business. And so people, I think that's what draws people here. We were looking at cell phone data this morning and talking a little bit about where people originate before they get to the mountain. We can track you, by the way. I just thought I'd let you know. And so it's interesting to see where they originate or where they were. But the overarching deal is visitation to our city and room nights is what drives the revenue for the county and the city.
Particularly those room nights, because
the room nights is the key. If we can get an average of 2 nights versus 1 night, it is monumental for the tax base in our city. We're a sales tax driven state, and unless you live in Georgia, you're not paying income tax, and I don't want to pay it anytime soon. And so it comes from the sales tax, and the data that comes out of the billions of dollars that's spent in our state and the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of sales tax we collect is it's actually in the billions on the sales tax that we collect. And then we throw occupancy tax on top of that. It's incredibly important that we promote room nights through our attractions. And we talk about it. I talk to Andy at the aquarium about it often, and talk to Doug at Rock City about it often. That people, I love my hoteliers, but people don't come to stay at a hotel in Chattanooga. They come here to do things: culinary, music, attractions, and then conventions, sporting events, youth sports. All of that is part of it. And it's very important that they stay in the hotels that we have.
When I moved here in 2000, Chattanooga was not as diversified in terms economically. It was more heavily weighted, at least in my opinion, tourism. And I kind of see fiber being that thing that brought in entrepreneurs. What is that mix now? Do you think it's more balanced than it's been in the past, where tourism's not carrying as heavy a load, or is it still?
No, I think it's balanced. I think just the build out of people moving here and the industry that's left. We're talking about wheel and foundry and combustion and all those things that were here when I was a kid. Have gone by the wayside. But I do think there's a better balance. But I think tourism supports. If you talk to any restaurant in town. That's not fast food. They will tell you that probably 30% of their revenue comes from visitors to our town. So
that's a big chunk.
If you think about your favorite restaurant, without tourism and people coming here and walking into their restaurants, they probably aren't here.
Yeah.
And it's extremely important to have the hotels full. I always tell folks I'm always fighting for the guy that owns the barbecue restaurant next to Hampton Inn, because he's praying that Hampton Inn is going to be full every night because people will come eat his barbecue.
Yeah. Well, with 30% being from out of town, you just do the math, and if you're open 6 days a week, that knocks 2 days out for you.
Yes, it is.
Not have 30% of those folks.
And you have to have room nights and overnight stays for the hotels. We're fortunate that from an attraction point of view, and the aquarium in Rock City do the same thing, is we get locals. We get local school groups. And we also get friends and family, which is every bit as big as what stays in hotels.
Is that mainly around the holidays?
Around the holidays, yeah. It's really busy around those times. And then finally we get transient. We get the people coming through town that want to take a 2-hour break, and they see a billboard and get off the freeway and come to Ruby Falls, and we try to get them to buy their tickets on their cell phone before they get there. And we can tell when they buy the ticket, and we know when they show up, and if it's 30 minutes later, we know they came off the freeway.
How far out do you market?
We market probably Atlanta, Birmingham, Huntsville, Nashville. From a digital point of view, our billboards are in 4 states and go out about 60 to 70 miles.
When you took the job, that first day on the job, kind of compare and contrast it to where you are today. You've obviously had a successful career. You've spent nearly 20 years at Ruby Falls. Where do you see it from where you were and where you are now?
Well, see, I started in '07, and if you'll remember what happened in '08 and '09.
The Great Recession we all like to talk about.
I was like, what have I done?
Yeah, I bet.
And so that was the really interesting thing. But what we did is we stuck to our fundamentals and stayed focused on the guest and the guest experience. And again, our team is second to none at that, and they are just fantastic. And I get a little bit of credit for all the great things they do, and I don't know where I'd be without them. But I think the biggest change that what we've done is we had no space, and so we were like, "Hey, buy a ticket, go see the falls, maybe buy a souvenir, but we need your parking spot." And so could you leave so I can bring somebody else in here to do the same thing? And we had to correct that. And so in 16, 17, we announced a $20 million expansion, which in today's world is not as much,
right.
That included parking, the annex, all that. So I think the biggest change is we become more of a destination, and we want people to dwell more. And we had our 1929 front porch that we converted into tables and benches that you can sit and drink a beer overlooking downtown Chattanooga or the new stadium here shortly. You'll be able to see the lights on very shortly, and relax. And we're not going, "Hey, could you move your car?"
Right, right.
So I think that's one of the biggest changes that we've done.
Yeah, come spend some time with us. What's next? Anything on the horizon for you?
We've got a few plans that I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
That's okay.
I'll keep those to myself right now.
I don't want to be killed yet.
Yeah, we're working on a few things. Two things. First is we're building a new admin building. The one we're in today is 4,000 square feet. It has 19 people in it and 2 bathrooms, and it was built in 1890. So,
yeah, it's an old house, right?
Yeah, it's an old house. You've been there, and it's time for it to move on. Yeah. And we're building above Ruby Falls, 14,000 square foot, 3-story admin building with 4 bathrooms. That's the most important thing, and adequate parking, et cetera. It has 2 wraparound porches that you'll be able to sit on and overlook downtown. It's going to be really nice, really beautiful. HK Architects designed it. Congratulations to them. Heidi did a fantastic job on that and her team. So that's number one. Number two is we're focused on our 100th anniversary. It will be a year-long celebration that starts fairly soon, and there are not a lot of 100-year businesses, and we try to make decisions every day that it's like, okay, will this be good for us 100 years from now?
Yeah, not
just this quarter. And if we do that, we can continue to look long term. I think so many people get lost in their day of long term quitting time.
Yeah,
and you just can't do that.
Well, from your experience in the corporate world, I would imagine that long term focus, to a degree, you didn't have that luxury in the corporate world. At least when I was in the corporate world, I didn't experience that.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, it was quarter by quarter.
It was. I remember that we had some financing one time that was publicly traded, so we were like a publicly traded company during one of our LBOs, and it was awful.
Oh, it's hard. It's a horrible way to operate.
It's horrible. Terrible.
Well, in just talking to you, it seems like that transition for you has been everything you wanted it to be, from corporate to taking over Ruby Falls.
I think I'd read a book occasionally over and over again. It's called Game Plan, and it's about mid-year or midlife decisions you make, and it's about focusing on more significant things in life and not just your next gig.
Yeah, that's important. And if you do it right, Ruby Falls is going to be around for another 100 years.
I won't be here. But,
well, you never know. You're a chemistry major, maybe.
No, I won't be here. But as I always tell people, what did somebody say the other day, that the roof we're putting on this new building has a 40-year warranty? And I said, well, I'm glad I won't be replacing that.
You don't have to worry about that one, do you?
No, you check that one off.
Before I get to my last question, Hugh, I do want to remind our listeners who makes My Morning Cup possible, and it's a big thank you to our presenting sponsors, EPB and Rockpoint Bank. Get EPB fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet, and Rockpoint Bank, your local banking partner, your business, your bank, and your future. So, Hugh, go back to your 25-year-old self, and what would you tell that 25-year-old Hugh Morrow is important for a happy life?
Probably if I could do it all over again. And I said this when I came to Ruby Falls, and it was one of the main reasons I came to Ruby Falls, is I would have preferred a vocation where I didn't travel as much.
Yeah.
I think I missed a lot. It was a great way to provide for a family, but there's time that I'll never get back. And my kids and I, we still laugh about it. We try to travel and do things now and try to spend time with the grandkids, et cetera. But it's, I just don't think I would do it that way again. I would much rather have been in town and been home every night. If I could change anything, that would be the deal. Now, I may not be where I am today.
Right.
Because the relationships and
those doors,
and the open doors and all that stuff that happened. But you got to put a value on that, and nobody. I know we're winding up here, but I ran into a guy that I hired in Memphis 25 years ago. The guy's name is Jeff Evans. I'll never forget him. And they were having their national sales meeting at our convention center, and I ran into him. And he came up, shook my hand, and he goes, "Thank you so much for believing in me. I've had a fantastic career here, and I've raised 3 kids, and they're through college, and on and on and on." And I went, now that's what I did this for. Yeah. And not for me, but for him.
That's good. That's a good way to put it. And just to piggyback on what you said about time. As we get older, the commodity you want is time. As we're younger, you got to make some money. Got to support my family, got to do this. And then you realize time's more important.
You're thinking about it quarterly.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it.
And whether or not I make the mortgage payment.
Yeah, well, and that's what it becomes.
It does. Yeah. It does. And I think when you get to my point in my career, you start thinking about, again, legacy and I'm willing to volunteer and help in any way I can, but I'm not going to stick my nose where it doesn't belong or is not wanted. Yeah.
Well, you've done a great job with Ruby Falls. I'm glad you made that decision back in 2006, 2007.
Thank you so much.
And look forward to celebrating 100 years of Ruby Falls coming up.
It's going to be a big one. It's going to be a big birthday.
I bet it is. Look forward to it. Thanks for coming and doing this.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Costa Media Advisors. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.